welcome to In Parliament. Today's debate began with a focus on the needy and the disadvantaged in society. Under the Ministry of Social and Family Development, speakers emphasised the importance of building a caring and inclusive country so no one will fall through the cracks. Indeed, Minister Chan Chun Sing delivered a candid speech peppered with amusing anecdotes on what plans his ministry had in the works. He pledged greater support for needy and vulnerable Singaporeans. For a start, he announced that social services will become more integrated and accessible to those who need them. The Social and Family Development Ministry will set up 20 social service offices within HDB towns island-wide from the third quarter of this year. Those living in Kreta Ayer, Jalan Besar, Jurong West, Bukit Panjang and Choa Chu Kang will be among the first to benefit when 4 offices are set up by year's end. The locations were prioritised based on the area's demographic profile and needs. The social assistance units at the 5 existing community development councils will also be converted to social service offices by the end of this year.
So that people do not need to travel long distances to get help. Elderly and disabled people do not need to spend $20 on a taxi fare just to go and collect a check. But the social service office is not just about giving up the financial assistance. We also want the social officers to be able to play a role to integrate the social service delivery in the respective towns.
For those in need of public assistance, Mr. Chan says his ministry is prepared to extend assistance to ComCare recipients beyond 1 year. Currently, the scheme typically provides temporary assistance to the needy for a few months or up to a year. But Mr. Chan said the ministry recognises there are those who will need more help for a longer period of time. They are typically those with medical conditions and complex family issues.
That is the easy part, to allow the flexibility in policy. And in fact, today we already have that flexibility in policy. What we need most are people on the ground, social assistant officers on the ground, who can and who are willing and who are prepared to make that judgment to extend the assistance to those who need it for a longer period.
People with disabilities will also benefit. A committee chaired by the minister will be implementing the Enabling Master Plan over the next 4 years. Announced last year, the master plan is a 5-year roadmap for support and programs for people with disabilities. Mr. Chan said close to $180 million was spent last year on support programs and implementation is on track. The ministry is working on more transport options for the disabled with a $3.1 million grant to SMRT taxis to bring in a new fleet of 30 wheelchair-accessible taxis by September this year. The ministry will also ramp up care options. A drop-in disability program will kick off at 4 sites this year to care for those with milder needs and give their caregivers time to rest. And by 2020, the number of places within adult disability homes will increase almost 4 times, and the number of places in day activity centres will be doubled.
As our population ages, the number of adult disabled persons do not grow linearly. They grow almost exponentially because the amount of care in the final years is especially tough.
Moving on to his next point, that of strengthening families. Mr. Chan said the family is a key priority for his ministry. In that respect, one main focus will be to create a better environment in which Singaporeans can start a family and raise their children. Mr. Chan said one concern parents have is with the quality of childcare and education. He revealed that the goal for the childcare sector in the next 5 years will be to have full-day childcare for at least 1 in 2 children up to the age of 6. This means 20,000 more childcare places. These new childcare centres could be built into the car parks or hawker centres of new BTO flats. In older estates, disused swimming pools and bus interchanges can also be converted. The ministry is also working with other agencies to increase the number of childcare centres at workplaces. Another challenge is manpower. Mr. Chan said salaries have gone up, but that's only part of the solution.
All of us as parents can do much to help. That when we send our children to the childcare, to at least acknowledge the childcare teachers to show them our appreciation. And please do not deposit the child at the childcare center and give the childcare teacher a list of instructions. Hey, please do not. Please make sure that my child don't fall down, no mosquito bite. And then when we collect them at the end of the day, again, instead of thanking the childcare teachers when we reach there, is to lift up the child and check whether there's mosquito bites, whether the child has fallen, and then walk off. I think the childcare teachers feel this. They told me, I can take a bit less pay, but please give me that bit of respect. And I think we can all do that together to acknowledge and affirm the good work done by our childcare teachers. It's not easy. We all know. All of us who have children, who to take care of one child at home for 24 hours can drive us crazy. To take care of many other people's children for at least 8 to 10 hours a day, it's not an easy job. So let's do our part.
Mr. Chan also addressed calls for the early childhood industry to be nationalized.
If we do that, the question that we have to ask ourselves is that, will we be able to offer the diversity required for the industry? We know that children learn very differently at an early age. A one-size-fits-all learning method will probably not work. We want diversity and we want to give choices to our parents. And we also respect that there are dedicated educators that have set up existing kindergartens and childcare centers with very innovative teaching methods. And we should keep them in our system and, if possible, to help them grow. On the other hand, some have called for privatization with many small players and just let 1,000 flowers bloom and give them a subsidy and let the parents decide. We are a bit cautious about this because the experience from the other countries have shown that this may not work out very well. Okay? Because in this unregulated market, what is most likely to happen is the top end of the market, the for-profit one, will grow very quickly. And the middle segment of the market, the mass market, is the one that grows the slowest. And if we continue this trajectory, we will be unable to provide affordable options for the mass market.
Mr. Chan said what his ministry is most concerned about is that there will be affordable and quality childcare options available to the mass market. That means options for those in the lower and middle income group. But he acknowledged it is not easy to assess the quality of childcare services.
The unfortunate experience in some other countries is that when people are short of tangible evidences, they look to price as a proxy. Then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. High-end operators attract people who can pay for the services and they produce quite good services, whereas the mass market one languish. This is not an ideological debate. There's nothing philosophical about it. We just want practical solution.
So Mr. Chan said the government is open to expanding the pool of anchor operators for childcare centres in line with the government's bid to build ahead to meet future demand. He said the large network of anchor operators island-wide and economies of scale enable them to invest in better operational and HR capabilities. The government will be calling for a request for proposal in the second quarter of this year.
The purpose of anchor operators is to recognize that preschools are a public good and a tool of social mobility for the majority to ensure as many children as possible start at nearly the same starting point. I therefore seek Minister's assurance that the public funds intended for preschool anchor operators will not end up with for-profit operators.
The anchor operator scheme has helped us expand the options for the middle income group. They have grown 130 in the last few years. Their fees are below the industry median. It is one of the criteria. This is the reason why we want to support more anchor operators to come in and join the sector to provide quality, affordable and accessible services, most importantly to the middle income and the lower income groups. Someone asked me, why do you build more childcare? The TFR is decreasing. Surely we need less childcare than before. But it can be a chicken and egg problem. People may not have children because they do not feel that they have adequate childcare provisions. then we get ourselves into a vicious circle. Not enough childcare, no children, become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And to keep an eye on and boost the quality of the industry, the Early Childhood Development Agency will begin operations on 1st April. The new preschool regulatory body will focus on master planning, capability building, curriculum and manpower development.
To make sure that we provide greater ease of operations for the operators, to make sure that we provide peace of mind to the parents, not just in terms of quality, but also in the continuity of service from childcare to kindergarten and childcare, and in time to come, even to after-school care and beyond.
Now, the government is also making a bigger push to inculcate a pro-family mindset across the schools, workplaces and within the community. This will be made possible through a new Family Matters program. It aims to help Singaporeans equip themselves with skills and knowledge that will enhance the quality of their family life. Unwed single mothers will also see infant and childcare leave provisions extended to them. They will receive the same childcare leave support as married parents.
We understand and we appreciate many of these families need additional support, especially single mothers. But single mothers are not a uniform group. They are unwedded single mothers, they are divorced single mothers, they are widowed single mothers. And I appreciate the push by Mr. Seah Kian Peng, Mr. Janil, Ms. Janice Koh, Ms. Mary Liu, Ms. Li Lilian for speaking up on behalf of the single parents. So we will continue to strive to provide better support for our families under duress.
As such, Mr. Chan said the government would like to encourage more adoptions where it can, but cautioned that this is a serious undertaking about a child's life and development and how the family relationship is built. Mr. Chan added his ministry will continue to strengthen the process and learn from other countries' best practices. He was responding to calls made by several MPs to encourage more couples who are unable to have their own children to adopt. Many pointed out that there are about 12,000 fetuses aborted annually in Singapore, half of them from married women.
Even if you are able to save only 10% of these abortion cases, that may mean 1,200 more babies in our midst. I met a resident who lamented that the adoption process is a rather cumbersome and long-drawn one. She had to wait for about a year before she was able to adopt her daughter from a couple who could not bring her up. Can the ministry study this and find ways to make the adoption process easier and shorter, but without compromising the legal and safety issues?
If we can promote the comforting, loving, nurturing and voluntary alternative of adoption to mothers thinking about abortion, we could possibly make many families wanting children very happy and also give the newborn baby a chance at life within a loving and nurturing family. This could have the happy result of also increasing our TFR, which is at an all-time low. I wish to emphasize the word voluntary in this proposal.
On average, we take about 5 months now to process an adoption case. We'll see how we can simplify and strengthen this without compromising on the quality of assessment and the care for the child. Other countries, adoption from other countries can take up to 2 years, and partly because we have to respect the rules and regulations of that country. Where we can, we'll work closer with those countries.
Moving on to the Manpower Ministry, plans were revealed on how the government was planning to build a fair and inclusive workforce. Many MPs called for more to be done to encourage companies to hire Singaporeans first for PME positions.
The priority should be to ensure jobs for Singaporean workers and to get them into these positions, while guaranteeing that businesses can obtain the skilled employees they need when they are unable to do so in the domestic employment market.
As we continue opening our doors to foreigners, we must ensure that PME jobs go to Singaporeans first. Companies in countries like the US and Australia often adopt policies that prioritize local talents over foreign talents.
Logically, in the interim, while we go towards that, many steps must be taken to make Singaporean employees of choice among the employers. What steps must be taken today to make sure that Singaporeans have the correct skill set, attitudes and aptitudes to take on these jobs of the future?
Responding, the acting Manpower Minister said measures are being put in place to ensure fair employment practices. The qualifying criteria for employment and S-passes will see further tightening later this year. The Manpower Ministry will adjust requirements for EPs at the Q1 or lowest tier. S-passes will also be tiered to require more experienced holders to earn more. Mr. Tan Chuan Jin said this is to level the playing field for junior Singaporean PMEs. Mr. Tan said there are three areas of concern in terms of fair employment practices: hasty recruitment processes, employers who substitute Singaporean PMEs with lower-cost foreign professionals, and those who hire their own kind.
We know that by being open, by being competitive, we are able to generate good jobs and opportunities for our people. We remain open to free movement, both of manpower and other resources, because if we are closed off, we'll be worse off. At the same time, and I think it's important to emphasize this, it is only fair and reasonable that foreign firms and foreigners working here bear responsibility to the local community. In a sense, this is somewhat of a social compact. We do not require global firms to give preferential treatments to locals, but they must be fair to Singaporeans. There must be equal opportunities for our people, whether at hiring or in advancement. There has to be a level playing field.
Mr. Tan also noted that the business community has been asking for greater clarity on when the great foreign workforce tightening will end. Mr. Tan explained that the government will be monitoring while managing the pace of the tightening. It will keep an eye on the growth rate of the foreign workforce, study the productivity growth of the overall economy, and track the real wage growth of Singaporeans at all levels. The aim is to slow the growth of the foreign workforce significantly during this decade so that its proportion does not increase significantly beyond the 1/3 ratio that was adopted in 2010. Last year, Singapore's foreign workforce grew by about 67,000, excluding foreign domestic workers. Mr. Tan said this is still too big a number.
Whilst it's clear that this budget has made it not negotiable for companies to restructure, relocate, or be weaned off their reliance on cheap foreign labour, the pace of the change appears pretty fast.
Our foreign workforce is meant to complement. It's not meant to substitute our local workforce. We're mindful that the presence of a large pool of foreign workers who have lower reservation wages than locals actually could have a depressive effect on wages. By keeping the labour market tight, and I think trying to raise the cost of hiring foreign workers, I think that's one approach among several to try to make sure that the wage growth of Singaporeans would also improve over time. Now, if we are not able to meet these targets, then we will continue the tightening and restructuring approach.
And to raise the quality bar for foreign entrepreneurs, the entry pass criteria will be tightened for those intending to set up businesses here from this September. And from July, the threshold salary for local workers under the dependency ratio framework will also be raised.
Currently, a company also need to have a requisite number of full-time local workers under our DRC framework to qualify for foreign workers. Well, we want to ensure that the local workers are actually employed meaningfully, rather than being employed on token salaries, just to allow the employers access to foreign workers. So we had actually increased it from 650 to 850 last year, and we will now adopt a threshold of increasing it from $850 to $1,000, and this will take effect from July this year.
Employers within the services sector, however, will be allowed to better optimize the deployment of their foreign manpower. The job flexibility scheme, which currently applies to the hotel industry, will be extended to the rest of the services sector. Guidelines will be sorted out before the policy is implemented in July this year. And of course, redesigning jobs is key, and so the government is setting aside $170 million over 3 years under a new one-stop program called WorkPro. The program will help employers improve work-life harmony and also help companies tap on locals and older workers re-entering the workforce by supporting job redesign, on-the-job training, recruitment and retention efforts. The new WorkPro program will consolidate the existing WOW Fund, Advantage and Flexi-works programs.
The most wonderful schemes on paper will not be effective if people find them too confusing to tap on. This is why we have combined our grants into a single WorkPro with just one application process. So if you were confused earlier, it's okay. Because all you need to do is to apply at one agency. And this is to make it easier for companies to apply for them. Companies can approach NTUC and SNAF, who will assess applicants' needs and provide advice on the relevant interventions and the grants.
Now, the acting Manpower Minister has explained that Singapore's employment situation is part of a happy problem. Last year, Singapore's economy grew 1.3%, but overall jobs growth was at 4%, outstripping GDP growth. Mr. Tan said the numbers show the country can afford to be more manpower efficient, which is a happier problem than if there were too few jobs.
We are in a good position to intensify our economic restructuring process and to reduce our reliance on foreign labour. We can, and I think we will afford, and we will forego some level of economic growth in pursuit of more economically sustainable productivity growth, and still be assured at the same time of good job opportunities for Singaporeans. We are aware that there will be structural unemployment, which is why we need to continue to upskill and retrain Singaporeans to make sure they remain competitive and to remain employable in the workforce.
In light of this manpower lean economy, Mr. Tan said there was a need to develop and sustain a strong Singaporean core in the workforce. To achieve this, the Ministry of Manpower will put in place new initiatives and strengthen existing programs to support two groups, employees and employers.
Studies have shown that employees who are happier at their jobs tend to be more productive and motivated. I think this is something that our member, Mr. Lawrence Lian, talked about earlier, and I fully concur with that. This means a few things. First, it means that we need to work hard at actually creating jobs that help Singaporeans fulfill their aspirations. But that's only one part of the story. And this part is important, the employers. They must develop more progressive workplaces through better leadership and HR practices. Why? Because this will enable Singaporeans to be not only fairly rewarded and to be able to balance work-life priorities if they so choose, but to be also better engaged, to be better looked after. Motivated employees are better employees.
Finally, touching briefly on Singapore's workplace fatality rate, Senior Parliamentary Secretary for Manpower, Hawazi Daipi, said it was at a new low of 2.1 fatalities per 100,000 workers, but cautioned against complacency and said a lot more can still be done.
MOM will enhance the existing regulations on work involving asbestos-containing materials. They will require, where it is reasonably practicable to do so, that all asbestos be removed from the building before demolition or renovation is carried out. In addition, licensing regime will be implemented for contractors carrying out asbestos removal work. MOM will also step up our asbestos program over the next 2 years to educate contractors and workers and strengthen capabilities within the industry to better manage work involving asbestos.
Parliament will wrap up its debate tomorrow with the Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth. Good night.